Today we are replacing every single fluid in my 1984 BMW E30 318i. Let's go! I've been really wanting to show you guys my new garage layout. Got my new fishing section over here, but what is really nice is my new workbench section. And on top of that, we have today's products. My friend Vic, viewer of mine, sent me everything I need from AMSOIL, and I am pumped. We got trans fluid, we got gear oil, we have engine oil, we have a trans and engine flush, fuel additive. He even sent me a gear lube pump as well as the oil filter, and I just have some standard BMW coolant, some washer fluid, and my brake fluid pump. Now I am super pumped to try this stuff. I've never used AMSOIL, but the biggest reason of all is right there at the bottom. Formulated, blended, and packaged in the US of A. You guys know me, I'm big on supporting the domestic economy, and I love finding automotive parts that are manufactured here in the US, especially fluids. So without further ado, let's get this E30 up into service position, probably up on some jack stands, and let's get started. This M10 is looking great after our last episode. First order of business is this AMSOIL engine and transmission flush. We pour the whole contents of the bottle into the crankcase, let the engine idle 10-15 minutes, drain, replace with new and new filter. Bottoms up. And while this idles, we will work on getting this thing up in the air so we can get up underneath it. All right, I usually don't like doing oil services when it's too hot, but here I don't have much of an option. Clean release, catch a sample. This will do. Now the biggest thing I care about is inside diameter. I don't care about outside diameter because the outside diameter doesn't matter nearly as much. This one matches inside and outside, so we'll use this. But you can see there's a lip on that old sealing washer, so we don't want to flip it, we want to refresh it. Now there's no real easy way of getting to it besides pulling the air box. So I'm just going to pull the air box. This is one of those designs where it wouldn't be a bad idea to just poke a hole in the bottom of the filter with a Phillips screwdriver before you untwist it. Hot. Tell you what though, it's got an Austrian filter with a BMW badge on it and a BMW part number. So Denise did a good job taking care of this car and taking it to the dealer. Brake cleaner, of course, spray all this oil back down off the engine. These cans don't spray when you tip them, but if you have a straw and you hold it upright and just bend the straw instead, it seems to work pretty well. Till you drop the straw. Got our new AMSOIL oil filter. This is nice. It's got like a bed liner type texture on it. Now you don't need to use oil filter pliers to tighten an oil filter. Just tighten it with your hand. Right, so oil is still out, oil filter is in, drain plug is torqued. But this pan gasket is a little bit leaky, so I'm gonna drop the bolts out for the oil pan and get that resealed up real quick. Some of that is coming from the front crank seal, but we'll do that when we do the belts at a later date. Before I dump it, I really want to get a good look inside the pan, see if we have any debris. And it looks really good. Minimal sludge, zero debris. Oil pickup looks clean. So here's a little bit better look for you. Some cool components. We got our oil pickup, our oil pump chain. I'm not sure what this rod is. If you guys could educate me on this. It's got a little bit of movement. Yeah, just not sure what it is. Maybe some dipstick tube back there, and then you can actually see a counterweight on the crankshaft, and way back there you can see one of the rod caps. Everything looks really good. A little bit of buildup, but nothing crazy, and the oil pan looks really clean. There's your oil pan. Surprisingly clean inside. I'm just trying to get all this oil out of here before we clean it up. All right, I'm gonna finish up this sealing surface with the die grinder, wire wheel. This oil pan could use a paint job, but that ain't happening today. I mean, I'm kind of tempted. Shit, I don't know. Do I paint it? My viewers would be pumped if I painted it, but it's got some rust. I'm not gonna have it off again. Okay, we'll paint it. Got some grease and wax remover. Now, I ain't going crazy with the paint job. Got some Krylon Satin Black, same paint I used for the steering wheel trim. While the paint dries on the oil pan, it's time to get a clean mating surface. You guys know, if you've been around the channel, clean mating surface is necessary in the garage and in the bedroom. So I love this red Scotch Brite, and I like to put a little bit of brake cleaner on it so it breaks up some of the grease and grime while I scrub. While that oil pan continues to dry, let's do a differential service. Now this differential, the diff mount is still good. The CV axle boots are not torn, they're not leaking. There's a lot of grime and buildup, but it's not apparent that the differential cover is leaking or the axle seals. I checked the fluid when I did the inspection and it was up to level, so we're just gonna do a drain and fill today. Pop the fill plug first, just so it can breathe. Some modern BMWs don't even have a drain plug. You have to pull the whole cover off, or you have to stick a fluid evacuator down in there. Look how great that fluid looks. That is nice, amber, honey. No complaints about that fluid whatsoever. That's some 65,000 mile fluid. See, 30 seconds later, I was able to fetch 2 sealing washers that match the inside and the outside diameter of those old washers perfectly. That is the value of having one of those sealing washer kits on hand. I cannot stress it enough. Saves you a trip to the hardware store. It saves you from having to look up a drain plug washer for the rear end or bring one into the store to match it up. It just makes life so easy. I highly recommend you guys get those sealing washer kits that I showed earlier. I will put a link for them in the description. I'm not affiliated with it. They're just so damn handy. I use them for differential washers, for drain plugs for oil pans, for transmission pans, power steering line banjo bolts, everything. Vanos lines, everything. Torque spec on this, I'm just gonna snug it down. Next step is to test out this AMSOIL Gear Lube 8090. It's an easy pack, so it's got this bag, and honestly I've never used this bag before, so I'm kind of excited. I probably should have left a little bit more tip when I trim that tip off, but I think we'll make it work. And we're gonna fill this until we get a light trickle out of the fill plug location. Sure is easier than conventional gear lube already. Wow, that went in so fast. And then I think when we get down to the end here, we can put the bag up like this. Maybe roll it. And one bag is perfect. Fill plug is tight, drain plug is tight. New fluid and new sealing washers. Rear end is good to go. Well, the oil pan is still drying, but next plan of attack, let's knock out the coolant. Now, there's a couple schools of thought when it comes to coolant flushes. There's usually a plug on the block somewhere so you can drain all the coolant out of the block. So for today on this E30, we're gonna just be doing a simple drain and fill. There is a coolant drain petcock right here on the bottom of the radiator. I'm gonna loosen that up, put a 5-gallon bucket under here, catch all the coolant that I can, and just top it off with some BMW blue coolant. You can also do a cooling system flush where you drain all this out, put water back into the system with a flush additive, run it, get it hot, drain it again, do all that. But the coolant in this vehicle is in really good shape, so we're just doing a drain and fill today. Yay, I totally screwed up the shot and I missed it. But we got about a half a gallon of coolant out of the petcock. Let me show you what it looks like. It's pretty nasty looking stuff. So I'm glad we're doing a drain and fill. I'm gonna replace the thermostat now, so hopefully we get a little bit more coolant out of the system. Just picked up some tacos and a burrito for dinner. Back to work on the thermostat. All right, I got some tacos in me, let's keep going. I'm gonna start busting the hose clamps loose for this thermostat. Just figure it'd be a good preventative maintenance item. Great tool for getting hoses loose is a hose pick tool like this. And really all you need to do is just get in there and break the seal. What a gargantuan mess. Well, we got the rest of the coolant out of the engine up top, that's for sure. Luckily, I've been saving a box full of rags for this day. Such a big mess. But thermostat is out, and I'm probably gonna save this old unit just in case. Now, as far as operating temperature goes, I haven't seen this thing get hot. It runs below the halfway point, and a lot of you guys tell me I need a fan shroud, but this engine actually was not, this year was not packaged with a fan shroud. You can retrofit them to a fan shroud model, which is like 86 and newer, but the 84 and 85 did not come with the fan shroud. And I'm actually okay with it because it doesn't get hot. So far, that I've seen. It hasn't overheated. I'm gonna reuse these old hose clamps. You can tell by this design right here that BMW never just uses a traditional style thermostat. It's always gotta be something special and unique, which reflects in the sticker price, but the customer and the mechanic pay the price. Hose clamps are tight, thermostat is in. And we got, you know, well over a gallon of coolant total out of it now. Time to drop in some fresh coolant. Got some Xerex by Valvoline G48, good for BMW, Mini, Tesla, all the blue coolants. This one's pre-mixed, so just go straight into the radiator. I don't like that. Why are you dripping down there like that when I fill the coolant? Did this radiator develop a leak somehow? What the hell? Maybe what I was seeing was overflow hose? I sure hope so. I'm pretty sure I'm safe. I spooked myself. I'm not used to having an overflow hose at the top of the radiator, so when I filled it up and I saw blue coolant trickling out, I thought I broke the radiator somehow. All right, y'all, check out this oil pan. Not too shabby. Inside's pretty nice and clean. Exterior paint job looks pretty good. So, not too bad for a little 20-minute paint. I'm out of masking tape, so electrical tape got the job done. Sadly, I think I'm out of Curil tea, so I'm gonna use what I can. Got a new L-ring oil pan gasket here. See if I can get a couple dabs down. Gonna need to order up some new stuff. But yeah, L-ring makes this stuff. Curil tea is what it's called. It's a gasket maker. I've been using it for years, and I like to use it in conjunction with oil pan gaskets. I don't use it with everything, and it's not necessary, but it's just a nice little second measure that I've always done for pan gaskets. So it's basically just tradition at this point. But this tube is tapped, so we'll see if we can't spread a little bit across. Just get a nice thin bead. I don't want in this channel per se. I kind of want on these edges as well where the cork gasket is going to seal against. And it has a little bit of tackiness to it, so it really helps the gasket stay stuck to the pan for installation, which is nice. But if I'm doing an E90, E46, E60, if I'm doing an N52 or an M54 oil pan gasket, I'm going to use Curil tea, 100%. Those engines just have such a high percentage of gasket leaks that I'm gonna use every measure that I can to ensure that I don't have to warranty, because I gotta admit, I did really good work at the shop compared to the other technicians in regards to pan gaskets and not having comebacks. I mean, L-ring gasket maker with an L-ring gasket, meant to be. Let's get this installed. It would be very easy to over torque and strip out the threads out of the upper pan. So I'm going very light. I'm gonna torque these to spec. Oil pan bolts, I'm doing 10 Newton meters. Seems to be the usual for the 6mm bolts. All right, oil pan is torqued. Well, we're running out of daylight, so we're gonna wrap today up with getting it topped back off with some engine oil, have some full synthetic 10W40 from AMSOIL. Looks like it has a high zinc additive as well, which is great to see on some of these older engines. I used to run a high zinc formula engine oil on my Jeep Cherokee because it had the 4-liter flat tappet cam. Oil capacity should be 4.25 quarts, so 1 gallon plus a quarter of a quart. Oh, boy did I get lucky. Piece of the tin foil from the cap fell down into the funnel, but I can fetch it. Glad that didn't go into the engine. Caught it just in time. I saw something go down there, and I thought, uh-oh, that's not good. I am really excited to see how this engine's gonna run with this 1040 in it. It was a little noisy before today's services, so yeah, I'm really excited. Also, I gotta say, I am really surprised at how easy it was to fill that rear end differential fluid. Those easy packs from AMSOIL, those bags, that was so convenient. I'm so used to using quart or liter jugs with a hand pump that, oh, that was a breath of fresh air. And today's video is not sponsored. AMSOIL is not sponsoring today's video. They did not pay me to say any of this. A viewer of mine named Vic, he's been watching the content for a little while, and he works for AMSOIL, and he said, hey, I'd love to send you some fluids for your E30 build. I don't want anything in return. I just want you to use them and let me know what you think. And so I figured it would be a great way to use his products to do a I changed every single fluid in my car type video. And I gotta say, so far so good. We'll see how this engine sounds when we fire it up with this 1040 in it. So 1/4, so 32, a quarter of 32, 8, 32 minus 8, 24? Yeah. That's gonna wrap it up for today, but do not go anywhere because we will be back tomorrow morning in about 5 seconds. Throwing in some AMSOIL gasoline performance improver. Just a little fuel system additive. You should do this right before fuel fill up, but it's already got a full tank. So it's the next day. We kicked off last night getting engine oil back into this BMW M10. We also resealed that oil pan with a fresh gasket and a coat of paint. And it is looking really nice. We put a new thermostat in the car. We also got the cooling system topped off with some fresh coolant. The rear end has been serviced. What I'm thinking is let's kick today off with a power steering fluid flush. We're also going to be replacing this bottle because all BMWs, they have a filter assembly inside the power steering reservoir. Now normally I'd take my fluid extractor and I would just run it down this hose, pull a majority of the fluid out, but I want to capture a sample of it inside a plastic cup. So I'm going to pull the line off, the suction line off of the power steering pump, try to get a sample of the fluid real quick. And at this point, I would be addressing power steering lines if they were leaking, but these power steering lines are all in good shape, surprisingly. Although I think this hose is aftermarket because someone left the banjo bolt on there and hose clamped a piece of hose onto the banjo bolt fitting. Ugh. Here we go. Got it. For the rest of this, I think we just pop this hose off and let her drain into the drain pan below. I'm gonna put this power steering line back on. Now we can work on removing this power steering bottle. There we go. Suction line. Okay. I normally replace hose clamps, but I'm probably going to replace this one. These bigger, beefier, 8mm super wide hose clamps, I'm probably going to leave until I replace these hoses completely. Now this one might have fluid. And there we have our bottle with our bracket. Now we can remove our bracket. And I don't have much reach, but I usually take my fluid extractor and I'll run the hose down these power steering lines as far as I can, just to pull any excess power steering fluid. It means there's less I have to flush and drain. Here we got our new power steering bottle. This hose clamp was a little bit oversized. You shouldn't have that much tag. Man, those hose clamps are great. Lift our bracket back up. Now I'm going to top the rest of this off with some AMSOIL automatic transmission fluid, full synthetic. All these older BMWs just use a standard ATF. E30s all the way up to E46. We're going to be able to use this stuff in the transmission as well. But we're going to do a bit more of a bleed and a flush once we get this vehicle fired up. Next order of business is dumping this transmission fluid. This transmission was replaced at the dealership. I confirmed with Denise. So honestly, it doesn't need replacing. But we're doing all the fluids. Got to do all the fluids. Look how clean that is. Also, I checked. This transmission does take Dextron 2, and the fluid that I have from AMSOIL is Dextron 2 compatible. That is beautiful looking fluid. I mean, look at that. That is Robitussin cherry, clear, perfect. Zero complaints. That is very impressive. I brought the kit with me this time so I can again show you how valuable this sealing washer, this assorted sealing washer kit is. Normally you'd never have that size washer just laying around. Let's see if we can find it. Boom. There we go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. We got a match. This thing saves me so many trips to the hardware store. Now we're gonna drop the pan, so I don't need to drain everything. Looks like a 10 millimeter. And this oil pan is interesting. It uses these hooks that sandwich around the lip of the trans pan and secure it up onto the transmission housing. So it's a little different. It's kind of cool. There's only 4 bolts, which is odd. But a very simple design, and this new trans hasn't leaked, so hopefully this doesn't get too messy. Oh, damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I gotta get that big. I forgot to bust this one loose, which is either a drain or a return. I feel like I could damage the threads. Is that the dipstick tube? I think it is the dipstick tube. God, they hammered that thing on. Nope, with that much leverage, it's not worth damaging the pan just to disconnect that. Sometimes you gotta be willing just to say, nope. And if it gives you an issue in the future, we can do something about it then. But if I wail on that too much, I'm afraid I'm gonna rip that thread insert from the pan, and then we got more problems. Let's see what happens with the dipstick tube still in. See if I can weasel the pan and I got an idea, because I can't get the pan to drop down far enough right now. So So I'm gonna put one bolt back up just to hold things in place. I pulled out the bolt that holds the dipstick tube to the bell housing. So hopefully that whole dipstick tube should just be nice and loose now. There we go. I won't be able to take it to the bench, but I got the trans pan all the way down. At least I got all the trans fluid poured out. My trans pan filter is different. So what we can do is I'm gonna pull the magnet, which the magnet's pretty clean. It's got a little bit of sludge. Yeah, I was hoping to replace the filter, but I got the wrong filter off eBay. Parts are not easy to find for this car. Okay, got the gasket surface cleaned off. Don't tell me this gasket is different. I think it is. Looks like my whole transmission service kit is wrong. Even the gasket. The gasket and the filter. So we're gonna have to reinstall the old stuff. But you know what? This transmission was just rebuilt. And it's a remanufactured transmission, I believe, so we'll be just fine. This gasket is still nice and soft. That's just part of wrenching. Can't always foresee these types of things. All right, time to go back up. Not sure a torque spec, but I'm gonna go grab a 1/4-inch ratchet and just snug them down. This bracket's hanging out a little wide, so I'm gonna go bend it or something. To give you guys an idea on how this fastens, you can see this little U-shaped bracket hooks under the lip on the pan and then bites onto the trans surface, the housing. There's another one. There's another one, and there's the fourth, and there's how the dipstick tube bolts in. But we are secure. We'll just have to double check it afterwards, see for any leaks. What you doing? You're all good. Huh? You're just fine, huh? Don't worry about Zoe. She's being a punk. I just got the dipstick tube bracket reinstalled, and if you guys are curious about where that was, it is right there. That's the bolt, that's the bracket that runs to the dipstick tube. So I guess I gotta fill this thing with trans fluid now. Last time I filled a transmission through the dipstick tube, it was probably my very first car, my Jeep Cherokee. I looked into the owner's manual. It says like 2 quarts, 2.25 quarts, so I'm just gonna put a trans funnel in here and fill it up through there. And here's the owner's manual. Automatic transmission for oil change application, 2.1 US quarts, 2 liters. And then use only automatic transmission fluid of Dextron formulation, 614. I looked it up. Dextron 2 is compatible, and this fluid is Dextron 2 compatible. So we're in good shape. Again, we're using this AMSOIL OE automatic transmission fluid, full synthetic. And if you look on the back right here, BMW, blah, 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 GM, Dextron 3, Dextron 2, we're good to go. And this is a 1 quart bottle. And if it's ever too much, you can run a fluid extractor down the dipstick tube and pull fluid that way. So there's 2 quarts, and we'll just do a splash out of this open bottle that I have. So 3, so to the 12. Now I did check for a reference mark on the dipstick before I did the service, and it was right about here. So I'm just going to kind of go for that until I fire it up and check it proper, which right now it's pretty much at the full mark. So we'll see. Before we go too much farther, I'm going to get this air box back in. We're going to have to run the vehicle to check trans fluid as well as finish the power steering flush. And we're pretty much done over here because I did pull it out to get access to the power steering hoses and the oil filter. Okay. Next on the list is brake fluid. Does it need to get done? No, I did it 2 episodes ago when I did a bunch of brake repairs. But for the sake of the video, we're going to do it again. It's testing below 1% moisture content for the brake fluid test. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the brake fluid cap off, and then we're going to take an adapter just like this. We're going to thread that on to the master, to the brake reservoir. I'm going to use my YS tool pressurized brake bleeder tool, and all you have to do is take this fitting, connect it onto your adapter, and pump up pressure. So I really love this tool. It contributed to one of my best YouTube videos so far, brake fluid flush, how, when, and why. Test the fluid. I bled it, talked about why I like to do brake fluid flushes. If you don't have a tool like this, you can gravity bleed. A lot of people say that doesn't get the job done right. If you don't have it, you can also do a 2-person bleed. Keep the reservoir full, pump up the brakes 3 times, have the person hold it, crack the bleeder open, close it, then they can release and pump it up again another 3 times. But with this, you can do it 1 person, and you can flow a bunch of fluid. Not to mention, you can put pressure in the system and test the system after you've done any repairs. Brake lines, brake hoses, wheel cylinders, all that stuff. So we're at 25 PSI. I'm gonna go get my tools. So here I got my brake bleeder bottle. It's just a water bottle practically with a rubber piece of hose on the end. You can make them if you want, but just take the cap off of your bleed screw. And what we're doing right now is we're starting at the furthest away from the master cylinder, which is the rear right. For you British folks, it'll be the rear left. I did this with the wheels off last time. So she's flowing, we're getting fluid. Something went wrong up top, and I'm not getting substantial fluid into the master. So I'm gonna have to tighten this up and go figure that out. So I just took this apart, and this is the pickup that goes down into the bottle and flows into the master. And what had happened was this rubber hose broke off the bottom of this pickup, so it was pulling air instead of fluid once the fluid level dropped down to below where the hose was picking up. So I got this old hose extracted. I'm gonna run some new hose inside there and try again. Alrighty, all fixed up. You can see a faint trace of some black vacuum line down in there. Let's pressurize it and give it another go. I'm sure that vacuum line will probably not hold up very well, saturated in brake fluid, but I'll address that at a later date. Great, now I'm hearing a hissing noise coming from the gauge. So I guess I'll pull that off real quick too. Well, I Teflon taped it, but it still has a small leak. They pretty much glue, they thread it and they glue that gauge into place. So this machine's pretty much toast, but I gotta get the air out of the line in the rear. So I'm gonna have to bleed it and come up here and keep it pumped up. There's always stuff that can go wrong. Hopefully I didn't introduce any air into the system while having to do that. Usually flushing brake fluid with this tool is an absolute breeze, and it is actually enjoyable. But what happened is the plastic that seals this gauge into there cracked, and so I have an air leak coming from here. I Teflon taped it like 3 times. It was leaking out slowly the whole time and just fighting me, so that was actually kind of a pain in the ass. We'll release the pressure, and I'll be warrantying this thing, I think. Hopefully. I bought it on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's Chinese. Pretty sure it was less than $100, so I think I got my money's worth, but still a bummer. I was a big fan of this tool. So now my brake fluid level is way too high. I'm going to pull some fluid, get it about a 1/2 inch down from the max. And I explained this in my brake overhaul video, but as your pistons and your wheel cylinders extend out further to compensate for how much your brake pads have worn down, your fluid level drops. So if you have all brand new brake pads, brake drums, you compress your pistons, it's going to push all that fluid back up into your master cylinder, into your reservoir. So your fluid level in your reservoir depends on what your brake life is, technically. Now we are on to washer fluid. And since I'm taking a sample of every fluid, that means I need to remove the reservoir. Normally I'd just stick a fluid extractor down into the reservoir and suck all the old fluid out, but my sample is not going to be a nice clean blue fluid if I do that. So let's just pop this tank out, pull this hose off the pump. I can capture some fluid. Pull this whole reservoir out. I'm going to go dump this thing out because it's just a bunch of soapy water. Now, issues that I have seen with washer fluid systems is on the newer BMWs where the pump goes into the bottle right here. There's this little pickup screen. And this one just has a grommet. But on the newer ones, it has a plastic screen. And people will use a bunch of different washer fluids. Some of them like to gel up. And they'll gel up and they'll block up that little screen there. And so if your washer tank is full and it sounds like your pump is cavitating, get access to your washer fluid pickup screen, pull it out and see if you can clean it. I've seen it a lot. I used to repair them all the time. This older one doesn't have it. It's just a sealing grommet. So just something to keep in mind. Pop our pump back down. Pump is back in, all reconnected. Now, I never buy washer fluid. At the shop, we use these little bottles, just little additive bottles that we'd order. I only bought this for the sake of the video, so I can have some nice, pretty blue fluid in the end. But I just fill with water. I haven't had any issues. I mean, even this screen here is dyed blue because of all the fluid people have put in it over the years with blue dyes in it. So honestly, it's the washer fluid additives that are going to cause the problem. Water's never going to give you any issues. But I sprayed that out with some brake cleaner just to get it cleaned up. Now we're almost done. We could have done the fuel system, but I just did a fuel filter last video and I have a full tank of gas with additives, so we're good on that. Next step is to fire up the car, finish bleeding the power steering fluid, and check transmission fluid level. Brake pedal feels good. You always want to check that after messing with brake fluid. Engine is sounding way better right off the bat. Reverse, neutral, drive, second gear, first gear, No, I was mistaken. It still has a little tick on the top end, but we're gonna be fixing that when we do the valve adjustment. So like I did in my BMW power steering fluid flush video, is I'm gonna take my fluid extractor and I'm gonna pull fluid. And then when the reservoir gets low, I'm gonna top it off. And I'm just gonna keep doing that until I get a nice ruby red color. Well, while I was doing the power steering flush, I noticed there was a steady trickle of washer fluid. Looks like I managed to crack the tank upon reinstalling, which is so silly because it just uses a little thumb screw, but goes to show 40-year-old plastic is bound to fail. Looks like I need a new washer tank, and it's gonna make a mess in my garage. You see the filter element down there at the bottom in that torque screw? That's what I look for. If I can see the white of that filter element, I am happy and satisfied with the clarity of the fluid. So, we're good. It's at the minimum mark. There we go, right up to the full. So it took about 2.5 quarts. Last tool check, tool check, tool check. Any more tool checks? Wanna go for a ride? Huh? You wanna go for a ride? Come on, load up. Good girl. I still don't have this thing fully registered yet, so technically we're riding dirty. And it is so sunny. Woo, she burns out, that's for sure. On the gravel, of course. Chagacho. Nice. This thing actually scoots. Brakes feel really good. Sage, what do you think? She ripping? Yeah. She's ripping, folks. She's really coming along. Well, folks, there you have it. Every single fluid on my 1984 BMW 318i. 39-year-old BMW, but she's running like a top. 65,000 miles. I am thoroughly impressed with all the quality of this fluid. Engine oil, gear oil, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, clean transmission fluid, clean engine oil, brake fluid, old coolant, old washer fluid, new washer fluid. Some of you get Ooh, little T-Rex arm. As some of you know, I recently quit my job as a wildland firefighter to pursue YouTube and content creation and make these kinds of videos for you guys full time. So if you think I earned it, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and if you do comment on the video, I read every single comment and I reply to every single comment on my channel. So if you guys have any questions, if you just want to chop it up, say hello, drop a comment down below. I'd love to get to know you guys. If you'd like another way to support the channel, I have a membership program for $2.99 a month, less than a cup of coffee. It's just another way to help support me and keep the bills paid, keep the lights on in the shop. I also have a Patreon too, and all that will be in the description of the video. And if you saw any tools in the video you were interested in, I'll do my best to put the links for those in the description as well. We've got a lot more to do on this car. I still need to do all the belts, crankshaft seal. I still need to do sway bar links, sway bar bushings, engine mounts, rebuild the drive shaft, fix an exhaust leak, adjust the valves, and take the valve cover off. So there's going to be a lot more content to come. If this is the first video you've seen in this series, I believe we have about 5 or 6 episodes going. This will be in a playlist on my YouTube channel. So feel free to jump over there and binge watch all of them too. It really helps the channel and I'd really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, or I hope you learned something new. And as always, folks, I will see you on my next day off. And if you enjoyed this video, check out this video up here. I think you'll really like it. Cheers.